Hello and welcome all. I can't see you, but you can see me. Welcome to this presentation of the 2023 Garden Trends Report. My name is Lindsay Day. I'm with Garden Media Group. I'm so excited to not be here in person, but to be with you all presenting. This is actually our 22nd Garden Trends Report. If you've seen one of our reports before, welcome back. If you have not, then thank you so much for joining us. This is a really fun project that we do each year. You can actually find all of our previous year's reports on our website. It's gardenmediagroup.com/trends. So our 2022 reports in there, and it's something we've been doing, like I said, this is our 22nd year of it. I'm so sorry not to be with you all in person, but luckily we are living in this beautiful, wonderful hybrid time where I can tune in and still be with you from 600 miles away. And so we'll start to get started. So the confession time, this is actually a sneak preview of our Garden Trends report. The actual presentation doesn't truly come out. It doesn't go live to the public until September. So we'd love to hear your feedback. It's always great to get to present this to a couple of audiences before the report comes out. So if you have feedback, if you want to explore something further, if you think that there's a trend that we missed, please reach out to us. I'd be happy to share my contact info, or you can reach out to us through our website. So without further ado, let's go ahead and jump into the 2023 Garden Trend Report titled I Believe in Me. So every year when we do our trends, we kind of all jump in together and we start sharing ideas, and we start to just sort of see what transpires and what kind of patterns emerge. And so we do a little bit of research on our own, and then we come together as a team. And this year there's two major themes that are driving forces of this moment, and it's really both the individual and also access. So this element of individuality is really more rooted in self-expression, whereas access or accessibility is rooted in self-reliance. So both of these are keys to the self, but they manifest in different ways. So individuality and accessibility aren't new terms, they're not new notions, but the way that they express themselves changes throughout the year. And so in the 90s, this individuality was more, it was the me, 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 me. And then that transitioned into the early 2000s to the treat yourself, or to the self-care or self-indulgence. Whereas now in the moment, this is transpiring more as self-reliance. It's been a crazy couple of years. We've been fighting to establish ourselves in this crazy mixed up world. We're beginning to educate ourselves and how to create a life that truly represents us and meets our needs, and is reducing our dependency on outside systems or outside people. It's this notion that reliance on the self is the only thing in our control and the only thing that we can be certain about. So we're seeing 2023, it's going to be this year of personal empowerment. Like, we've got through COVID, we've grown our own food, we started our own kitchen gardens, we started growing our own herbs. What can't we do? What's next kind of element? So with only ourselves to answer to, our lifestyles need to serve and reflect who we are. And so, like I said, we've learned that we can't really control what's happening externally, that we can only control ourselves. And we do that through what we buy, what we think, and what we do. Now it's this time that our consumers are taking responsibility for the materials that we use. And it's time for us as an industry to take responsibility for the materials that we are using, whether it's how stuff is produced, how we are buying, how and consuming, and those values that we buy into and represent as a whole. We're entering this notion of spiritual renaissance and this time of enlightenment. We're really looking inward and embracing maximalism. Now, maximalism comes up in all sorts of ways, but it's really manifesting as cocooning ourselves in the experiences and the stuff and the things that are most sacred to us. Creating our own personal brands. This is shown through the popularity of herbalism, with an emphasis on home medicine, being reliant on yourself, or a trendy kitchen garden, or even urban vegetable production, being able to utilize raw natural materials and be reliant on the self. It's rooted very much in intention. This plea for the individual and access is really key to it's a key element to a shared humanity that we're settling into, this notion that we are all that we've got. So I want you to think about those as we carry them through all of our trends. Those are the two overarching themes, and then we've got 7 trends that we'll go through here. So kicking it off with a really fun one is the Tesla effect. This is a super fun one to dive into and to look at. It's all about technology. So think back over the past decade, how often has the word meta crossed your mind or crossed your lips? But now think about it in the past 6 months. Technology is moving rapidly and advancements are happening, and these advancements are better or at least as good as their gas-powered cousins, really focusing as we're talking about gardening tools and equipment. I don't know if you all saw the all-electric F-150. They had a commercial that came out showing it pull a train to show that it's just as strong as the gas-powered F-150. And the F-150 is it's like one of the keys to our industry and our so we're starting to call this the Tesla effect. So it doesn't matter how you feel about Tesla. It's about technology. Tech is sexy. It's startups. They're wooing investors by claiming to be the Tesla of boating, of cycling, of gardening, of X industry, you name it. The whole notion that you're the inventor, you're the creator that's changing the way things have been done. And the green industry is really no exception to that. We've really moved and we've gone to electric or battery powered equipment faster than almost any other industry. In just the past 2 years, mowers and leaf blowers and other electric equipment has accounted for about 17% of the market, whereas it's significant. That's 3 times more than that of electric cars. And it feels like we're seeing more and more electric cars each day. So imagine that, 3 times that in our industry. And it's not just with the individual. This is coming even from a government perspective, where the state of Arizona is offering vouchers now for people to switch to electric lawn equipment. And then California is aiming to ban gas-powered mowers in 2024. And even though it's coming from this outside, people are switching on their own. Just like shovels and smart tools, it's going to be a necessity for us to move in this element of technology. While we're not going to say that it doesn't have its own set of adverse effects, when utilized correctly, people have more success. Some of these electric equipment can be easier to use, and therefore that leans into that element of accessibility. Not to mention with 18.1 million new gardeners joining the industry over the past 2 years, these digital natives are coming and they're going to expect technology in the gardening industry. A great example of this is going to be with Home Depot. So we always look to some of the big box stores as kind of a pulse on the overarching trends. So this year in 2021, Home Depot experienced its strongest first quarter sales on record. We're talking to other garden centers and producers, you've had mixed responses over how the past years, but to get this statistic from Home Depot was really interesting, especially because they expect that growth to continue. Ted Decker, the COO, says that growth is due to the level of innovation that they're seeing on the shelves. Almost 90% of those products that they're on display are going to be new SKUs to Home Depot. And this whole element is coming from this notion of trading up. So consumers are trading up to more innovative technology and more innovative tools. This pipeline for innovative products remains very strong, and consumers are looking to improve their homes and adopt these new innovations into their life. He definitely accounts that seeing this customer trade up has accounted to that increased growth in markets, especially, you've seen it with electrified lawnmowers and electrified tools. And it's not just with products. Part of this notion of technology is in new partnerships, challenging sort of the new status quo of our industry. Silicon Valley is chomping at the bit. Gardening is hot right now, and so they're trying to get involved. Over the past year, we saw almost $20 million of venture capital investments show up in our industry with just 2 companies. So I don't know if you're familiar with Kevin Esprito from Epic Gardening. He just recently received money from venture capitalists, as well as the company Enter Neverland. It shows that these big tech companies are trying to get in on this industry. So plus, we're also seeing this in smart devices. I'm sure many of you have heard the term Roomba. It's become the universal term that we use for robotic vacuums. Well, those inventors have created a weeding robot called the Turtle. It's a super cool product. It's really fun to watch work. We're taking that innovation that we see indoors of a robotic vacuum and bringing it outdoors. And so what the Turtle does is it can go around. It might need a specific garden right now, but that innovation and that technology is only going to grow as we do. but it's solar powered. It's a weeding robot that cuts small weeds off right at the base, which if you're a soil ecologist, you know is great for soil because it's not causing as much disturbance. And research out of Cornell is saying that that's just as effective as pulling weeds. So this one little robot comes in and it can help people from doing the #1 most hated garden chore. And if you're not spending all of that time weeding and you're not worried about spending that time weeding, that gives you more time for planting or harvesting or different things, or even just enjoying your green space. Now, where are they buying these products? So this is when we're going to talk about omni-channel shopping. So this has really expanded over the past few years. I think the pandemic really opened our eyes to the possibilities of omni-channel shopping. What that means is basically just doing your shopping along different avenues. And one of the biggest ones is going to be moving online. So customers' preference for online and delivery has this is just looking at grocery stores, has increased 50% during the pandemic and continues to rise. So we thought that some of these things were just something that was happening in the moment because of the present time, but these trends are continuing on. According to McKinsey, grocery store and e-commerce sales have grown about 60% since 2020. And people are really enjoying the convenience of online shopping and are preferring home delivery. In fact, we're seeing a shift in before it was a lot of curbside pickup. We're seeing the shift into just bring it to me. I'll just sit at home in my sweatpants and you can bring it to me. So we're seeing this big shift at this moment. That means people are making fewer trips. So they're prioritizing their trips. They're visiting to fewer stores. And that means that they're 20% more likely to visit just one grocery store per week rather than visiting multiples. So in 2023, we're seeing that consumers are going to be seeking out one-stop shops where they can buy everything in one place. And so we as an industry need to look at how we can provide that for them. Speaking of one-stop shopping, the most universal one-stop shop is going to be right here, our phones. You may roll your eyes, you may be frustrated, but these things are with us. They're a unique element to our everyday life, and people are on them. They go there for everything from shopping to doing research to entertainment, for inspiration. It's all right there. So why not just streamline that channel and allow consumers to be able to purchase right from their phones? And because of this, we're seeing a revival in apps, not necessarily with not just the creation of new apps, but better utilizing apps that already exist. We all know that when apps came out, it was like everybody had an app for everything, but now we're finding ways to properly utilize those apps. For example, From Seed to Spoon, an app launched by Parkseed allows you to shop, log your plants, calculate your harvesting dates, calculate how much you need to plant, find recipes with your vegetables. Everything is all right there in one place. And we're seeing this trending outside of our industry as well. So the wine.com app has a label scanner. You're able to rate your purchases, save your purchases, and this has propelled their mobile revenue to account for about 1/3 of the company's overall revenue, which has grown from about 30%. So it shows that, if you can do it all in one place and you streamline the whole process, consumers are more likely to spend more. This doesn't necessarily mean that you need to go out and create your own app. In fact, if you've got apps that you're using or you're reaching, you can just do everything already inside another app. For example, Instagram. Social media is a super powerful tool and way to reach your customers and consumers. If you're not using apps like on social media, or you don't have an app, try something like text-based shopping. So this can make a sale even faster, or a text-based response after consumers have shopped. So if they've bought a product, you can text them a personalized note about how or what to do, and you can automate these through systems. Brands are now improving this wallet share by offering more personalized recommendations. The key to this is really that personalization. And if you can hone in on that personalization, this omnichannel shopper is spending 2 to 4 times more money than an in-store shopper might. So the focus has shifted. Early on, we were really trying to protect our in-store purchases, and that's still incredibly important, and our in-store sales are essential, but being able to support online and in-store shopping is really where it's at. Find out a great way to start learning about this is to find out what your customers' pain points are and to talk about them. So moving on to our next trend, we've got the backdoor revolution. Sorry, I need some water. So I'm sure no one here has not heard some element of someone talking about the housing market over the past 6 months. Whether it's crazy, it's up, it's down, it's every which way, everybody's talking about the housing market. And the fact of the matter is that we are currently in the middle of a housing shortage. The inventory of houses available has dropped from a monthly average of about 1.6 million units in 2019 to just 1 million units, which doesn't sound as drastic as when you think about the 600,000 units that are unavailable on the market. And so this is causing buyers to be priced out and home values to rise exponentially. They've risen about 32% in just the past 2 years. And now this is happening at this moment when roughly 7.3 million millennials, which is the largest US generation, is entering this prime first-time home buying moment. And so what are they supposed to do, especially when experts don't think that these first-time buyers, that this market's going to really return until after, it's going to return to normal until after 2030. And so with this home buying experience being out of reach for many, this demand for rentals is going up, especially in more of our mid-sized and small cities. So this missing middle of the housing market, so how do we cater to that? And so Forbes actually coined the term the year of the ADU. So if you're not familiar with the ADU, it's accessory dwelling unit, and that these are going to be maybe the answer to this missing middle of the market. So what an ADU is: a self-contained living unit that can be attached or detached from a single family home. So it's just a small living unit that can either be in the backyard, can be attached to a home, and it's sort of a co-space in a single, attached to a single family home. Since housing is typically the single largest monthly expense for most Americans, this kind of opens new doors for seniors, adult children, different people to either move into living in accessible dwelling units, or as a way for homeowners to offer an ADU to a friend, family, a new person, to cut those costs of their mortgages or rental payments. And this isn't just happening. Local government is starting to catch on. So there had been limitations on people being able to do this, but local governments are recognizing this, and approval to create these units or build these units is becoming easier to obtain. This backdoor revolution is really going to happen. We're seeing this happen a lot more in those small to mid-sized cities. So it's already kind of happening in a lot of these big cities like San Francisco or Portland, where living costs have grown out of reach for so many people. Portland zoning actually reform did this in 2021 as part of a wave of similar changes across North America. Houston, which is actually one of the least expensive boom towns, sort of led the way by slashing the minimum lot sizes to only 1,400 square feet, and Minneapolis. So you're seeing this in a bunch of different cities. So Minneapolis is legalizing these triplexes citywide, so sharing different yards. And so we're seeing this across the US, from Walla Walla to Charlotte, are setting these wheels in motion to create these shared spaces, these shared gardens, the shared yard spaces, or just houses with dwelling units attached. And so for garden centers or brands, we have an opportunity to discuss defining spaces and share ways to design products and to suit these evolving needs. For example, this picture right here, it's a beautiful little cottage cluster where all these people can share this co-garden space. So what are the key elements to making something like this work? And one of the big things is privacy. So even though you're sharing this green space, you'd like holding on to your privacy is still going to be important. So that can be done with this small space garden design and container. So small space garden design and container garden searches have reached new highs on Google Trends. So a lot of people in our industry, we're familiar with container gardening. It's nothing new to us, but it's really new to a lot of these new home buyers and new gardeners. During the Great Grow Along, they surveyed their attendees afterwards. They said the container gardening is the #1 way that 34 to 45-year-olds are gardening. So this is how they prefer to garden, whether it's because they have smaller spaces, this is their intro to gardening, or the way that they prefer. So what as an industry we can do is showcase these small but mighty products and plants and show them how to incorporate containers into landscapes. One of the great people that are doing this right now is the Petite Knockout. So they're perfectly suited for this type of living, whether it's containers or small spaces. You're getting the same flower power, and it's easiest to care for as knockouts have been in the past, but it's in this adorable little compact side. Another thing that's key is fences. So fences can provide planting, or fences can provide privacy or planting hedges. Vertical design is becoming more important. I was in Michigan recently and I saw a whole garden center that was dedicated to vertical gardens and green walls, and creating, if you don't have lots of horizontal space, start moving up the vertical space. If people were at Cultivate, they had a lot of really amazing vertical designs, and this can be incorporated at home as well. So green walls, like I said, are finally making this big push and taking a front seat. So consider how you can position your products to suit this backdoor revolution. So moving on to our next trend, this one is accessible gardening. So in 2023 and beyond, the age 100 is becoming the new 50. So people are living significantly longer. And so we're calling this era of super agers. And so not only are people living longer, but their brains are functioning better. And so they're functioning as if they're 30 years younger, which means that these customers have been tried and true customers for generations are going to continue. They have a longer range of productivity. They're going to live in multiple locations. They may have multiple careers or even multiple partners, and just experiencing more out of life. So we have to have housing products and other accessible opportunities that are going to adapt for these super agers to thrive. For example, the ADU, the backyard revolution we were just discussing, is really suited for these needs. There are also technological implications with this. So for someone who might be older, it might not be as easy for them to take a trip to Italy, but they can slap on a pair of virtual reality goggles or experience augmented reality and feel as if they're there, and have an Italian chef come and cook them a meal. So things like virtual reality, augmented reality, artificial intelligence are going to continue booming and transporting people anywhere that they desire, so they can relax and relive the most carefree days of their life. It's going to enable this generation to do what they love at all ages with minimal impact or travel houses or even expenses. So as for the past several years, we've been talking about millennials, the next generation. Now we're talking about Gen Z after that. But let's not forget that the boomers are not going anywhere anytime soon. We're calling this kind of moment, along with that, is this notion of down aging, which is very much rooted in nostalgia. So I'm sure all of you can empathize that there's this nostalgic element that's around us right now. They're remaking Barbie. I just saw Netflix is remaking The Addams Family. We're seeing all of these things from our years before. People are finding comfort in those familiar pursuits and products from decades past. And so not only are down aging boomers are determined to stay as active as possible, whether it's gardening or golf, they're hiring robo-companions and attending senior summer camps. So there's more stuff that they're able to do. Millennials are also down aging. So we're seeing them buy vinyl for their old school turntables, or they're watching Friends more than their parents ever did. Or they're eating up remakes, like we were just saying. The Star is Born, Pet Sematary, 90210, even Fuller House has got its own revival. Now we're going to have Barbie and all sorts of new things coming up next. And then we're seeing all of these move outdoors as well. So millennials and boomers are channeling their mid-century modern with retro metal lawn chairs or pagoda umbrellas, and kind of channeling this early 90s or even just the 70s notion with cool tropical plants like the Royal Hawaiian Waikiki Colocasia, which has got bright colors, perfect in a container. And they're using plants like this to decorate their space. So brands who are going to tug at the nostalgic heartstrings of these down agers is going to win their business. So One way to enact this in the everyday is have a throwback logo for a special occasion or an anniversary, or revive a bestseller, or relaunch a product with a new spin on it so that you can access your customers by kind of tugging at those nostalgic heartstrings. A lot of this is really rooted in accessibility, like we were discussing before. So we have an entirely new customer in this already loyal generation. We are increasingly asked to focus our efforts on millennials, but we forget about boomers that are still there and are still in our stores. So nurturing a core audience by giving them nurture them by giving them new experiences. Instead of losing them to retirement communities like Margaritaville, create new options for them to stay where they are. A great example of this is Art Reach Philadelphia was working with the Pennsylvania Horticulture Society to make art gardens more accessible to older generations. They started using specialized raised pods where plants are placed at manageable height for people who can no longer bend over as far, or if they're in wheelchairs, and this allows them to enjoy the same space as others may have. Another key notion is plant coaching. So many garden centers or even plant nurseries can have someone on staff, or maybe they come in once a month, that can help plant coach these individuals who may be getting into gardening for the first time or are looking for new ways to garden. Whether they just picked it up late in life or they've been doing it forever, having a coach and having someone to help them through this, almost like a plant mom, can appeal to multiple generations as well. People are craving knowledge, and so providing that for them is really essential. So we've talked about the older generation. Now we move back to, you might be rolling your eyes, you may not want to hear it, but we can't ignore it any longer. TikTok is here, and that means Plant Talk is here. Everybody's talking about it. And as much as we've tried to roll our eyes and hope that we'd never have to get here, social media is constantly changing. We think TikTok is going to be here to stay. There's a great quote from a New Yorker magazine article about New York restaurants can't ignore TikTok anymore. They've tried to, and I don't think our industry can either. So TikTok is a little bit different of a social media platform than some of the other ones we've seen in the past, and as they've changed. TikTok users are spending an average of 52 minutes per day on the app. That means some more, some less. I have been guilty of spending more than 52 minutes on TikTok before. That short form video really sucks you in. Another thing is that 90% of those users visit the app more than once per day. So platforms like Facebook and Instagram track their users about how often they visit. It could just be once per month, whereas these are using this app more than once per day. And there's over 1 billion monthly active users. So it's really universal. Compared to these other social media platforms, TikTok has really hit the mainstream, and it's hit it hard. The good news about this is it allows for more democratization. So the algorithms used in this are going to allow different people you may be able to gain a spotlight even without having as many followers as you would on other social media apps. So content from an account with few followers has just as much potential to go viral due to the For You page as someone who may have hundreds of followers. These algorithms boost the content onto feeds regardless of the following on the account. So it's really focused more on the content and whether watchers enjoy it. TikTok certainly started as just a bunch of dance videos, but it's no longer just dance videos. People are turning to TikTok for financial education, investing tips, cooking hacks, book recommendations, and even gardening advice. And so if you've been on TikTok or you're familiar with it, you may have heard of Book Talk. And so this is a really great notion because we can compare it to our industry. It has sent old books back to bestseller lists and has really helped launch careers of some small independent authors. Videos with the hashtag Book Talk have been viewed 13 billion times, which is huge. Users say it's like getting a recommendation from a close friend or an independent bookseller, but in the comfort of your own home. So small to large retailers have taken the advantage of the Book Talk popularity to market popular titles. So if you walk into a Barnes & Noble, you may find a specialized table or area where they're featuring books that are found on Book Talk. if this can happen to Book Talk, or this can happen to bookstores, especially independent bookstores, which are so similar to many of our garden centers, shouldn't the green industry also become TikTok content creators as well, especially when we have something beautiful to show up? This is what we're already seeing. So this is some of our green industries on TikTok. So if you're familiar with Some of the Rain Oaks, so she recently worked on a project with flowerbulbs.com where they planted over 70,000 bulbs, and she made a quick TikTok on that, and it got over, I think it's up to 3.1 million views now. So just by putting together this project and showing it. It's also Native Plant Talk is happening. So Native Plant Talk's got 270,000 followers, and he showed him planting a native garden with over 1.8 million views. And even people who may not have as many followers, so Learn to Grow, who's located out in Washington, she's only got 71,000 followers, and this video she posted got over 167,000 views. So it doesn't matter how many followers you have, going out there, putting a little video showing your product can get you in front of a lot of different audiences. What's unique about TikTok and Plant Talk especially is that it's really fueled by those looking to create unique spaces that are speaking to their identity. So we're coming back to this notion of self-expression and individuality. And we've seen this kind of with three big trends within that. One of them is going to be gnomecore. And so if you're familiar with gnomecore, it's super cute. It's not just gnomes, it's really about ornate objects with purpose. So think of a garden with gnomes in it. You can just feel cozy there. It's cozy, it's self-care, it's a transcendent promise of a good and sensible life. It really maximizes on the whimsical and the eclectic. And so gardens filled with bold colors and lots of texture and artwork. I went to a garden recently that had all sorts of beautiful little statues in there, and it made going through the garden an adventure. Another big trend on TikTok is witch talk. So with about 19.8 billion views, this trend is about sharing kind of this inherited knowledge. So it's creating intention and ceremony about objects passed down from ancestors or things that are unique to regions or cultures. And this is manifesting in our industry as people using herbs to do magic or witchcraft or different things, but it's kind of just reconnecting with what's natural, the elemental. And one great way to see that is moon gardens. Google Trends says that the term hasn't even hit its peak yet, that they expect it to peak in 2023. So this is mindfulness spirals. If you've seen pictures of moon gardens, they're absolutely beautiful. They've got these mindfulness spirals, or even just using moon gardens as a way to talk about suggestions. This has been featured in Real Simple and the Old Farmer's Almanac and lectures nationwide. So curating to your audience or to your consumer different things that are already trending online shows that you're on TikTok too. One of the big things about TikTok also is this community element. Community commerce is an opportunity for brands to fit seamlessly into people's digital experience. According to the Great Grow Along, 85% of people purchase products or services after seeing them reviewed on social media, and 79% of them are saying that they take gardening advice from online sources. So new audiences are finding this information online. So commerce is moving towards, if you tuned into our last year's trends report, you might have seen that we talked a lot about shoppertainment, this blend between shopping and entertainment that we see a lot of times on digital devices. And so we're seeing commerce move in that direction as an experience that entertains and enables and connects these individuals, allowing for product discovery and a transaction to happen at a very quick pace. After a viral video on TikTok, Little Moon's Moki got about 19.5 million views. The video got 19.5 million views, and they saw sales rise by 700%. Starbucks saw that and decided to launch 2 limited edition drinks inspired by TikTok trends, and that generated 11.5 million impressions. So brands can move really quickly, especially if they deploy the right tactics. And so the way that the consumers are discovering and purchasing products has really changed, and they're taking action much quicker. This community aspect drives discovery, and entertainment drives action. So if brands want to be part of the future community, especially the community commerce, they must be willing to listen to the community and determine these micro trends that they're seeing. And the best way to do that is to get yourself on TikTok. Start small. It doesn't mean you have to have a whole new social media plan overnight. So a next trend, this was a really fun one to work on together as a group. So we actually have to thank Pinterest. So we get a lot of our inspirations for trends from different places, and this is one that showed up on Pinterest. We had a couple of different things we were discussing as a group, and they kind of transpired and all fit into this trend. So Greece is the word. So nostalgia is returning all the way to its roots this year as people take inspiration from ancient Greece. So they are investing in everything from Corinthian home decor to Aphrodite-inspired wallpapers. And this is really showing up big with the youngest generation, Gen Z, embracing this ancient trend more than anybody else. And the way this can look in the gardens is we're seeing a revival in using statues and boxwood hedges. And as a member of the American Boxwood Society, I could be more excited about boxwood hedges. I've been fighting that one by myself for a long time. These classic Greek gardens are designed to stand up to the elements, and they are the scrappy gardens that can make do. We're calling this the romantic beauty, a garden to suit the gods. Stone walls, archways, and pale colored backdrop are typical features of a Greek garden. Adding statuary or terracotta, using elements of symmetry to pull it together, using plants to shade seating areas with climbers around arches and tall trees. Olive trees are the it plant in Europe right now, and we're going to see that come into the US as well. Create dimension and impact by elevating raised beds and patios. Another thing is key plants. So think of the Mediterranean climate. So water-wise succulents, boxwood, even roses. A big thing is bulbs. Bulbs are having a moment right now, such as agapanthus and cyclamen, creating this natural, timeless look. And if you need more inspiration about bulbs, check out flowerbulbs.com. One of the things that's really kind of transpired, and we're seeing a lot more of these gravel gardens. You can see that picture on the right is of Andrew Bunting's garden, his gravel garden. They are a unique and staple element of Greek design, and they look amazing in heat and drought and require 80% less maintenance. Now, it doesn't mean that they're easy to start, and so this is an opportunity to talk to consumers about how to start a gravel garden. But once you get them going, they can be much easier to maintain. And who doesn't love a garden that's easy to maintain? Not to mention, they have all sorts of incredible environmental benefits as well. So thriving on rainfall alone with no fertilizer or other additives needed. This is great for a small space. Think back to those ADUs. If you only have a small space to garden, focus on having a big impact. Or you can use it to encompass a huge space. This is a great way to fill a space in an entire front yard, especially if you're moving away from grasses and turfs. This is a great way to change that. You can add containers as a pop of color if you're worried about that. If you're all familiar with Jeff Epping, he's the godfather of gravel gardens. He suggests actually starting with like prairie grasses such as dropseed, little blue stem, or big blue stem, or even switchgrass. And then you layer prairie plants such as pale purple coneflower, rattlesnake master, and prairie's baby's breath, different plants like that, or even just dramatic grasses on the other hand, like Lamandra. Platinum Beauty is a beautiful one from the Sunset Plant Collection. The nice thing about a lot of these plants is that they're low water, they have water-wise plants or low water needs. And so in areas of lower water quantities or drought, you can continue to have a beautiful garden without having to water it all the time. These are also a great place for native plants. Recently, Garden for Wildlife, a branch of the National Wildlife Federation, has been working to curate these native plant collections, and a lot of those work exceptionally well in gravel gardens and can are suited to withstand these harsher conditions. A lot of this notion is about planting what lives in your environment. Speaking of, that transitions easily into our next trend, which we are called redrawing the map. So I'm sure you've heard about this. You're all familiar with hardiness zones. You can't be in this industry and not know about hardiness zones. The US Department of Agriculture first published the hardiness zone map back in 1960. It's based on the average annual minimum temperature of any given spot. You're all familiar with that. But since the map was updated in 2012, nearly half the country is at least half a zone warmer. So we're redrawing this map again. So researchers believe that the lines were going to continue to march northward at climate velocity of about 13 miles per decade. Worst case scenario, by the end of the century, we're seeing the Earth's climate projected to warm by an additional 11 degrees Fahrenheit. And so they're saying that right now, in the next 10 to 30 years are a critical window for climate action. And what's the answer? Trees. Whatever the question is, trees are always the answer. As the climate changes, trees find themselves kind of in this uncomfortable situation, caught in the crosshairs. Whether it's damage from heat and drought can cause them to stress and make them more susceptible to disease or insect infestations. It allows for invasives to move and take over a small area. Not only does the palette of trees that will thrive in a particular area need to change, but Dr. Dan Herms, a scientist at Davy Tree, says that as the climate is warming, it's fast enough to change the hardiness zone within the lifespan of some trees planted today. So that means you have to start thinking about the future when we're planting trees. We need to make informed decisions about which trees to plant for the changing climate, because trees are going to be one of the major solutions as we battle a warming planet. Forward-thinking public gardens are already starting to do this, moving away from monoculture and choosing more climate resilient trees. Trees are at the root of this, the green infrastructure. They contribute to climate change resilience through the ecosystem and the services that they provide, whether it's pulling carbon dioxide out of the air, helping with erosion. Trees are such an essential element to this green infrastructure. New studies are proving this efficacy. So a recent study by Princeton shows that reforestation produces clouds that protect the planet from the sun rays. So by planting more forests, you're inevitably cooling the climate. They also sequester and provide long-term carbon storage. They're decreasing stormwater runoff, conserving energy through shading and reduction in urban heat, and filtering out those air pollutants. So as the climate crisis deepens, businesses and consumers need to are joining nonprofit groups and governments in this global tree planting boom. Last year saw billions of trees planted in scores of countries worldwide. So these efforts are a triple win. They're providing livelihoods, they're providing jobs, they're absorbing and locking away planet warming carbon dioxide, and they're improving the overall health of ecosystems. But the key is doing this well. When it's done poorly, these projects can actually worsen some of the problems, because whether trees, they can worsen the problems that they were meant to solve. So planting the wrong tree in the wrong place can lead to damage to that tree and reduce the biodiversity and speed up some of these extinctions. Stumbling over my words, sorry about that, and making ecosystems far less resilient. So it's not just about planting trees, but it's about planting the right tree in the right place. And also in the right way, as all of us in the industry know that there's a right way and a wrong way to plant things. So planting trees in the right way is just as important. Davies Tree climate research has focused a lot on identifying the appropriate trees to plant in this changing climate. So for example, as the climate is changing, in central West Virginia, oak and hickory forests are predicted to increase in dominance compared to maple, beech, and gray birch decrease in abundance in other places. In northern Maine, they're expecting these spruce fir forests to transition to the maple, beech, birch forests, which will replace by oak and hickory forests in New York. So you're seeing this shift in the species that are going to be the most prevalent in different forests. So it's important to work with local arborists, working people with the community, and identifying these SIP code relevant species, because that's going to be essential to your place. And so our last trend, which is one of our most exciting trends, sometimes one of our most, I jumped ahead too quickly. So one of our most anticipated trends is the color of the year. So we are predicting, it was a hard one to decide. We talked a lot about different colors. We're seeing a lot of different trends with colors. You see them across our industry into other industries, whether it's dopamine inducing bright colors or natural colors, and the perfect intersection is the color terracotta. Obviously, us plants people are familiar with terracotta, but it's really having its moment. And in fact, it's kind of a newer color. And did you know in Europe, the color orange didn't even have a name until the 16th century? They called it yellow red or saffron, or they called it different things. But when the Portuguese merchants brought the first orange juice to Europe from Asia, they had to develop a word around it. Orange is really deeply rooted in history. Orange is a color that's connected to different spiritualities. It's the color of transformation in Confucianism, the color of perfection and illumination in Buddhism, and a color used in Hindu dresses. In Western color, orange is associated with feelings of warmth, excitement, and amusement. It's a very warm color. In fact, it was the signature color between the 60s and 70s. Think of this swinging 60s, this time of change and peace and love and psychedelic aesthetic. And then the 70s moved away from the more natural to the psychedelic orange or the acid orange. And then they moved into this beautiful terracotta that we see today that's attached to so many earth tones. Earth tones are really dominated. They really dominated this 70s era, which we're seeing a lot of nostalgia and nod back to currently. And as we know, that was the Earth movement that began in the 70s with their very first ever Earth Day. So terracotta doesn't just mean terracotta containers. You can add this warmth and vibrancy to different decorating schemes and different color combinations, or it can be used to liven up interiors or exteriors. It's a really great highlight color. So if you're using more gentle, contemporary, neutral color palettes, it can be used as an accent to liven up a space, or it can be combined with a bunch of other deep earth colors and adding in graphic patterns or in cushions or in rugs or as accents. It folds right into that space. You can embrace that joy and the optimism of the 70s decade with these curved shapes and handmade finishes. Think macrame, all these fun details. Who doesn't love fringe? Fringe can come back. Match it with these whites and earthy tones and with all natural materials from the earth, things such as terracotta and Moroccan inspired ceramics, but also these dry sculptural colors typical of these desert environments can be brought into the home and into the garden. And so when you think go terracotta, there are so many choices here, whether you're pulling these elements of terracotta in the plants themselves, whether it's the flowers or the foliage or in the containers. Plant and accessory choices are endless in the store when it comes to this color of the year. So have fun with it, be bold with it, think outside of just the container. We love the terracotta pot, but think outside. Use tried and true flowers from Bloomable, such as the Sombrero Adobe Orange Coneflower, which is such a vibrant, beautiful flower, or Tacoma Head Red Hot and the Veranda Mango Rose. You also get these terracotta elements coming up in foliage, like the Copper Top Sweet Viburnum. It's got bright orangey, burgundy new growth, and it's a perfect low maintenance landscape plant. Or even if you're trying to take a spin on the terracotta container, look for it in new ways or in new formulas or different, such as this from LBD, so the one in the top right corner, which is it's kind of a modern take. So you've got the traditional terracotta color in this new modern shape.